We have a secret in our culture, and it's not that birth is painful, it's that women are strong.
Mm.
And I have seen that so many times in developing countries.
Oh, yeah.
OMG. It is amazing, particularly in a place like Yemen, where I said women only went to hospital when they couldn't birth at home, when the baby just wasn't coming,
Mm.
or when it was too early. And we had a lot of complications, a hell of a lot of complications. Every day was complications, and these complications were huge. They were painful. They were life-threatening, and women got through them and smiled at the end,
Yeah.
over and over and over again. I remember there was this one time when I was out in the courtyard. There was a courtyard outside the maternity unit in Yemen, at the hospital I worked at in Yemen, and this truck came in, and a woman was in the back of a truck holding a baby. And I'm going, what's she here for? She's already got a baby. What's she here for? And as she came out, I noticed that she still had a bump in her tummy. And I'm going, oh, okay. I think she's carrying another baby. So indeed, she was carrying another baby. They were twins. So she actually birthed her baby the day before, the first baby the day before in the village. She lived about 2 hours away. And then after she birthed her first baby, she knew that they said she had another baby inside, but her contractions diminished and she couldn't birth the baby. So being in Yemen and being a developing country where you don't have access to um, ambulances, they actually had to fish around and beg for money to get transport to take her to hospital. And that took them the whole of the day, the whole of the night. And so by mid-morning, they actually had the money to pay the petrol for the driver to take her in the back of the truck 2 hours on a dirt road to get to hospital. Okay? And so here she is. So she was just absolutely floored. You could just tell. So we took her into the hospital. Her baby was fine. We checked the heartbeat of the baby that was still inside, and yeah, there was a heartbeat, and it was a healthy heartbeat. It was great. So we basically, so the baby wasn't quite head down. We actually had to move it, so it was head down into the pelvis, and then we broke her waters, and the baby was head down, and she didn't contract right away. It was all fine. The baby's heartbeat was fine. It was all good. So we just got her to walk around a bit, and got her to dance. We were all dancing. The sisterhood was out. The midwives were out. We were just so happy that everything was all good. Everyone was there. We were dancing, and we were moving her hips, and everything was going really, really well. The contraction started, and bang, she had a second baby. And the baby was fine. It was pink. It was breathing. It was crying.
That is a very empowering story.
Isn't that amazing? And these are twins with two placentas, two sacs, two placentas, so paternal twins that have different birthdays.
Yeah.
How cool is that? And it just makes me think of twin births in our country in these tertiary hospitals,
Yes.
which
You
is
might
all
go there.
songs and dances. It's like, yes. But isn't that incredible?
That is really incredible, and particularly in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah, so she was over the moon, and the smile she had with her two babies, and they were good weights too, with her two babies. It was just incredible. And the smile she had for me, because I was the Western face, right? And, you know, it was a whole unit. It was Mrs. Sanfrantier that actually helped her, but I was the face of the maternity unit, and just this look of just pure joy because I helped save her life and her baby's lives. Whereas if Mrs. Sanfrantier wasn't there, those two babies, well, the first baby would have lived, but the second baby would have died. She might have even died because there was no way that she would have died.
Yeah, certainly the risk factors were adding up at a rapid rate of knots.
Yeah, yeah. But how cool is that?
It is, and the fact that those risk factors got turned around with a good outcome is really amazing and powerful.
Yeah, and it just goes to show you how strong we are physically and mentally.
Mm.
And the babies are strong. Like, remember that story I told you about that little tiny baby that was the size of my palm, survived being this big strapping baby at 6 months.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story.
Yeah, you know, like, we are strong. Babies are strong. And we don't realise that in the Western world. And this is part of my mission as a pregnancy coach, to empower women to believe all this. So they make choices that are congruent to their values, their beliefs. and are strong in their last month of pregnancy, strong going into childbirth. So they go into motherhood empowered, confident, and transcend into that new role confidently.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And not allow themselves to be derailed by well-intentioned, well-meant advice from friends and family, but also that not reading everything on social media, because
Yes.
that's so disempowering and so undermining. And having that for them to develop a network of strong women around them who will support them.
And that's what it's all about, strong women around them that actually know stuff. So one of my visions that I really have in my business is to develop that community.
Yep.
All through the pregnancy. Wouldn't that be so empowering? So we'd have expert advice, we'd have support, we would have people supporting each other.
Yeah, it is that support for each other that is so necessary.
Yeah, that sisterhood that is so prevalent in developing countries, that we're missing that bit of community here. Because how many people, when you were working as a midwife, I know I was working as a midwife, were isolated. Most women are isolated to a certain extent.
Oh, very much so. And it's become worse.
Yeah.
I think you don't realise how much you're taking in on a conscious and subconscious level. And the conscious level you probably will deal with better than the subconscious is the one that gets to you and rears its head at the most inappropriate times. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the belief, for me, it's the actual belief that, and the trust in ourselves that we can actually do it, and that we actually are really, really strong. We don't really realize that we're that strong. We
Yeah.
have no idea that we're that strong because we've never been through anything bad in our lives, and particularly with our generations. Let's face it.
Excuse me just a second.
No worries. Thank you, Liz. We're at an area, a time of our life in the world, in the Western world, where we are at the most incredible time of human history, where we can flick on a switch at night time and have light, where we can open up a faucet and not only get water, but get hot water.
Yes.
Where we can go into a supermarket and get oranges in summertime and watermelon in wintertime and bananas all year round.
Yeah, well, some of that I still struggle with, but that's another story.
It's just incredible what we can have.
What we have to remember, depending on where you live, even in Australia, as to how accessible some of this is. And some, there's lots of, even, here in Australia, we've still got communities that are quite a distance from shopping centres that don't have that same access to fresh fruit and veg, etc., that we do in the larger, suburban or regional cities, regional towns, in cities.
I
And that's
know.
something we do need to keep in mind.
Exactly. I remember when I worked on community in Central Australia,
Yeah.
we just had cans.
Yeah.
And if we had fresh fruit and veggies, it wasn't fresh. It wasn't fresh at all. And it
No.
was so
Even then,
expensive. So expensive.
exorbitantly expensive.
Because you spent a lot of time up in WA too, at one time,
Yeah.
hey?
Yeah, in the Kimberley, and back then, like a couple of lifetimes ago now, a lot of our supplies came up on the steamship.
Yeah.
It came up by boat, so the week before, fresh veggies were an absolute luxury. There wasn't the road transport back then that there is now. And like, we don't appreciate today what the journey we've come over the years to get where we are today.
Exactly.
And the ease of access we've got to so much that we now take for granted.
Yep, I totally agree with you. And one of the things I always grappled with when I came back from overseas was going into a supermarket and just having everything there. But the one thing I found really disturbing was going down the aisle with the toilet paper. Why do we have so much toilet paper? And so many different brands of toilet paper? I always grappled with that. Always grappled with that. Always. Let alone the fresh fruit and vegetables and the meat, our meat that comes in a styrofoam package. Eggs that come in a carton. It's pretty amazing. Yeah. But anyway, and there are ways that we can train our brain. It's quite incredible because that fear is pervasive. That fear is pervasive in our society as opposed to developing countries. And developing countries, let's face it, they would have something to be really fearful of because birth outcomes aren't as good as they are here. And are they, you know, my experience in Africa is that they just got on with it. My experience in Yemen, they just got on with it. It's interesting. But anyway, we're going on to the second one now. So I think we're just going to be speeding this up a little bit, I think. Otherwise, we'll be here till midnight. And Sen is still there, so I really appreciate you, Sen, as well. So we're going to be talking about the body and the body's influence in modern society as opposed to developing countries. Thank you, gorgeous. She got a little love heart. So what do we do in our modern world that we didn't do a couple of 100 years ago that people don't do in developing countries? And they're right there. We're talking about sitting down. We're particularly talking about sitting down in front of a computer. And what's the other one we're doing, Liz? Driving our car. So these two things that we routinely do daily dramatically affect our body in our capacity to have a serene birth. So as you're really, really familiar with the psoas, we love the psoas, don't we, Liz? And I am just going to show you this video that actually talks about or shows you what the psoas is and how it can actually impact on our uterus. So this is the psoas. So as you know, it's connected to the lower half of our vertebrae, and goes around our hips and connects to the upper part of our thigh bone. So in here, in the front of this little muscle is our uterus. So it's one of our stabilizing muscles in our body. This and our deep transverse abdominal muscles both keep us upright and keep us walking and keep us going. So as you can see, as you're moving the thigh up, what's it doing? The actual psoas muscle there is moving up, it is contracting. Liz, I think you're actually stopped and now you're talking. Are you still there, Liz, or have you gone? Okay, I'm just going to go on, okay? So as we're actually contracting our muscle here, it is actually also affecting our uterus, which lies in front of this muscle. So by the contraction, it actually moves our uterus in a slightly tensed way. So it actually restricts your baby's movement in a little way and actually helps your baby move into what we call a rest, beautiful, thank you, darling, an actual, what we call a back on back or an OP position. Now, in Western society, in my practice in Australia, 99 women out of 100 carry their babies in an OP position because we are seated down all the time. I never saw this in developing countries. It was actually seen as as a really weird presentation. In fact, there was one time I was called up at 2 o'clock in the morning. This is when I was working in a refugee camp in Ethiopia, because the midwife who was looking after a woman who was in labour had someone who was presenting back on back, with baby's back on her back, also known in midwifery and obstetric circles as OP, which in a further slide I will describe as an occipito, which means this little bit here, posterior meaning back position, so back on back position. And so he had never seen it before. He was freaking out, and I went in there and went, "Oh, it's only OP, you're fine." So he stayed until she had her baby, which is all very interesting. So look at this, as he's going up and going up, that muscle contracts. Contraction. This is interesting. Moving our legs like that, it twists that muscle, which further contorts that muscle, which affects our uterus, which affects the way that our baby is lying. Woo! Okay, so what can we do about this? And no, your baby is not going to do that. This is just a little gimmick on the beautiful YouTube video that I downloaded. No, you might feel your baby is doing that inside, but they are not doing this, okay? We'll finish that. So that is one way that our body in modern life affects our baby's position in birth, or for birth at the end of pregnancy. And that actually has implications at the end of pregnancy as well, because you're getting a lot of backache at the end of pregnancy. And if a woman goes into labor with a baby on their back, then that baby has a really long turn. And I'll describe that in another little video that I have.